First Day Paula Pudafat published by Paula Pudafat, 2024. This is a work of fiction. Similarities to real people, places, or events are entirely coincidental. First Day First Edition. October 12, 2024. Copyright 2024 Paula Pudafat. ISBN 979-8227805829 written by Paula Pudafat. Pink glove. The pink glove caught her eye, almost covered, as it was, in damp autumn leaves. Crouching, Jenna automatically reached for the precious item. Felt a restraining hand on her arm. Leave it, Jen. It isn't hers, okay? Beth looked her elder sister in the eye. It isn't Mia's. It is hers, Beth, Jenna insisted. It's the one she lost. Not after all this time. It isn't even the right shade. Mia's gloves were more of a dusky pink. She had 2 pairs. The one she lost was precisely this shade of pink. This is Mia's glove. 1-2 Paula Pudafat. Beth wasn't convinced, but what could she do? Jenna was not going to leave the glove there. She knew it was Mia's. Knew it. It was a sign. Their little sister was alive and well, and no one was going to persuade Jenna otherwise. No one. Come on, sis, urged Beth. We told Mum we'd be there by 7. As if life went on. As if it did, or ever would. As though the guilt would ever fade. The glove simply had to be Mia's, that was all. The quadruplets Allegra Mason was an only child until the age of almost 8, when she, literally overnight, became the eldest of 5. Her mother's pregnancy had been excruciating, and Allegra had often found herself in the care of Aunt Louise, her mum's younger sister. Ally's father prioritized being there for his wife and the babies, a trend that continued after the quads were born. Mirabelle, Thomas, Henry, and Rosanna. You must be so excited, Ally, her best friend, Leah, had gushed. I mean, 4 babies, wow. I can't wait to see them all. 3-4 Paula Pudafat. Allegra had mixed feelings. Sure, she was excited, and she actually enjoyed helping out. Even dirty nappies didn't faze her. On the other hand, it was overwhelming, and all about the quads now. Family and friends wanted to take photos of the babies and upload them to social media, and sometimes they asked for Allegra to be in the pictures, but often, not. Home was noisy and messy, and Ally had to move into the box room. Allegra spent as much time as possible at friends' houses, to avoid being stuck at home, or packed off to Aunt Louise's. And since neither Leah nor Sophie, First Day 5, both of whom were only children and went on about how lucky Ally was to have 4 siblings, seemed remotely understanding. Allegra started to hang around with a different group of friends. Ones who were not a great influence on her. The ringleader was Carrie's Lawrence, whose reputation preceded her. But Ally didn't care. She needed to rebel, and her parents barely seemed to notice. Their firstborn had been sidelined. It wasn't until Allegra and her friends were caught shoplifting that her parents realized that something was seriously wrong. A series of events followed, as Ally's world spiraled, and she began to lose control. As the quads grew up, Allegra began to bond with them more, but her parents both resented that their eldest daughter needed more than 6 Paula Pudafat they now had to give. They remained focused on the younger children, and ignored Ally, until periodically, her behavior would force them to pay her attention. She started to smoke and drink, from the age of 12. Experimented with drugs. At the age of 16, Allegra was stranger raped, whilst cutting across a car park late at night, to reach her boyfriend's bedsit. She became pregnant, and her mother, along with a GP at their local surgery, bullied her daughter into having an First Day 7 abortion. No way was she having Ally at home with a kid, and she also didn't want to be seen as throwing her out, by the extended family, and by the local community in general. Allegra left home at 19. She lives in a bedsit now, and is entirely estranged from her family. She doesn't blame the quadruplets. She feels let down by her parents. Aunt Louise, along with the rest of the extended family, refuses to talk to Ally. She no longer drinks or smokes, and actually leads a quiet, and approaching reclusive, existence, but the family have decided to shun Allegra, and do not intend to back down. If anyone asks, Ally simply has her own life, and no one ever pushes them to expand upon this, or justify their cruel treatment of the girl. First Day September 1987. It was their first day at St. Andrew's Comp, and Marcy was comforted, at least, by the presence of her 3 best friends, with whom she had arrived. Marcy had known Donna, Faye, and Nicole since day 1 at Lakefield Primary. The girls, wearing their brand new, charcoal and navy uniforms, stood together in a quadrangle, all concrete, surrounded by looming concrete buildings. There were kids everywhere, shoving and screaming, some of whom were practically adults, and seemed terrifying to Marcy. It's huge, remarked Nicole, who always had been tiny for her age, and currently resembled a First Day 9 borrower, faced with a, previously undiscovered, human-scale universe. I don't think I'll ever know my way around, admitted Faye. Yeah, you will, said Donna, sounding slightly bored. Jen reckons she knew her way around within a couple of days. It's not that difficult. You're so lucky, having an older sister here, said Marcy. Paula Pudafat. Donna was the only one of the group with a sibling at the school. Faye had 2 younger brothers, and Nicole did have an older sister, but Judith attended a local grammar school. Marcy was an only child. It won't make much odds. Jennifer will be hanging around with her mates. She won't want to be bothered with me. Anyway, it's not a big deal. We're 11 now. It's about time we left Lakefield. The school hall was significantly larger and more imposing than the one at primary school, and there were many seats on a raised platform, towards the back of the hall. They were the usual uncomfortable plastic chairs, in a random mix first day 11 of greys, blues, and reds. The 4 friends sat together, roughly in the middle of the ocean of kids. There were a few others they knew from Lakefield, and they had spoken to most of them, whilst avoiding Jake Thomas and his cronies, who had been known bullies at primary school, and were not likely to have changed for the better. In a daze, Marcy fidgeted, listening, as well as her wandering mind would permit, to the words of the grey-haired headmaster, who looked older than any of her grandparents. Then, a woman, aged about 12, Paula Pudafat 30, with shoulder-length, auburn hair, took center stage. Their head of year, Mrs. Mason. After initial words, came the moment they had all been waiting for. Mrs. Mason was to announce who would be in each form group, of which there were 5. Donna had mentioned that Miss Carson's form was generally considered to be the best, and Mr. Lee's the least desirable option. The list for Miss Carson's was read out first, and none of the 4 were on it. Miss Miller's form, 1B. Again, not one of them. Were they all going to be in the same class? The odds were increasing. They exchanged glances throughout. Mr. Green's form, 1C. Not one of their names. First day 13 Miss Smith's form was next, and Marcy's worst nightmare came true. One by one, she heard the names of her friends read out, in alphabetical order, and they each rose, gathering coats and belongings. Her own surname was Wilson, meaning that she would always be last on any alphabetic list, but there were only 2 names after Donna Waters, and Marcy's was not one of them. She was, by default, in Mr. Lee's form. On her own. Marcy felt slightly dizzy, but reminded herself that 14 Paula Pudafat these were only really tutor groups. Kids who had registration together. All 4 were bound to be in the top stream, and would be likely to have lessons in common. Well, at least that ought to be the case. If the exam placed enough emphasis upon English, and not too much upon maths and science. Marcy had to be in the top half of their year group. She had no idea what she would do otherwise. First day 15 I know you but I know you, Caroline. I held her gaze. Those familiar grey eyes. Shifted position on the olive green sofa, in my friend's spacious living room. No, Helen, you don't. Of course I do. It's been 10 years. You know what I allowed you to know. My name isn't even Caroline. You're not making any sense, I told her. My name is Mary, she said. Mary Jackson. And suddenly, the jigsaw pieces slot into place for an instant. The image was before me, but the picture was surreal, distorted, bordering upon horrific, and I was forced to look away. I had to leave. Right now. She had been telling the truth, for once. I really didn't know this woman, or want to. 16 Paula Pudafat forgetting loving someone shouldn't be a chore, said Mia. I don't see it as a chore, sis, Jane told her. You could have fooled me. The truth was that, with Stephen, it had indeed become something of a daily chore. It wasn't possible to pinpoint a moment when this had occurred, not one precise moment. It was cumulative. Jane hated how right her elder sister always was. So, what are you going to do? Asked Mia. Jane shrugged. I'm going to do what you do in life. Get on with it. What else can I do? I think you know, said Mia. Jane did know. But she and Stephen had Alice now. She didn't want to think about any of this, and she wouldn't. She knew exactly how to forget, after all. Forgetting was what she did. Amanda, contains spoilers for the novel Distorted Perceptions, September 1994. Lucy, are you sure there's nothing going on between you and James? You guys have a lot of history. Lucy rolled her eyes. James is a friend. That's all he's been for a very long time, Charlotte, as well you know. He's married with 2 adorable girls, and another kid on the way. And I learned my lesson long ago, about affairs with married men. The 2 of them were sitting in a quiet corner of their beloved local, the Red Lion. Such a familiar venue. And, as per usual, Lucy was consuming a pint of Stella, and Charlotte, a medium white wine. You mean because of Kev, ventured Charlotte. Or Phil. 1718 Paula Pudafat Charlotte. The expression in her best friend's grey-blue eyes warned Charlotte not to push the point much further. Charlotte Lyndhurst and Lucy Ryman, both aged 28, had known each other since early childhood. In fact, both had known 29-year-old James McIntyre for almost as long. The three had grown up as neighbors, and attended the same primary and comprehensive schools. Charlotte and Lucy had been in the school year below James, and they had all been friends, even before Lucy and James became childhood sweethearts. To put the case mildly, it had not been her choice to end the relationship, and Lucy had struggled to accept James's first marriage. "First day 19 Kev," said Lucy, toying with a strand of her shoulder-length red hair, a nervous gesture that Charlotte associated much more with Lucy's younger sister, Sarah. "I realized in time that me and Phil would have been a huge mistake. And now he and Sarah are getting on much better, and Caleb is beyond excited about becoming a big brother." Which was true. The birth of Pippa Jackson had been such a blessing to the young couple, whose marriage had been through a bad patch. "Fair enough," said Charlotte. Lucy took a decisive swig of Stella Artois. "Then, listen, Charlie, there was a reason why James asked me to visit, but it wasn't about him and me. In fact, Claudia was there almost the entire time. Anyway, I'm rambling. The fact is, James knows where my cousin is." Charlotte inhaled deeply. "Shit." Lucy referred to Tara Ryman, the only daughter of Lucy's uncle, Mike. This uncle was the younger brother of Lucy's late father, Dave Ryman. Charlotte and Tara had been a couple, and lived together for years. Paula Pudafat, you okay?" inquired Charlotte's friend. "I'm fine. Just tell me, Luce. I take it she's still with Amanda." "Yes, she is. In a sense, that is. They're still in Dorset." Charlotte, Tara, and Lucy had moved to Bournemouth in 1990, where they had stayed for a few years with Tara's friend, Abigail. They actually only moved as far as Poole. Charlotte's eyes burned, but she would not cry. She'd done enough of that. "Mike knew, of course." "He did," admitted Lucy, "but he never told me anything. I heard everything I now know from James." She hesitated. "Then, Charlotte, it was never what we both assumed. First day 21 Amanda isn't Tara's girlfriend, never was. She's Amanda Lee, Erica's younger sister." "Are you sure, Luce?" Charlotte frowned. "I do remember Tara mentioning that Erica had a sister. Apparently, she was at the funeral. James had been married to Erica, and they had had a daughter, Primrose. Both Erica and Primmy, as well as their second, unborn child, had died in a car crash, which James himself had survived. Before getting together with James, Erica, who had been 9 years older than her husband, had lived with her then-girlfriend, Tara. Tara was hurt when you wouldn't go with her to the funeral, Lucy reminded her. "I know. It just didn't feel right. And, even though we didn't break up over it, that was the beginning of the end for us. You saw how we became, once we moved to Abigail's. And Tara and Abigail have history, you know." Lucy nodded. "I sensed that, but they're not more than friends now. As for Amanda, she has never been more than a good friend to Tara. Her boyfriend, Oscar, 22 Paula Pudafat and their son are living there, too. It was never about Tara and Amanda being a couple. It was about the connection with Erica." Charlotte could feel the sting of determined tears. "Even if that's true, where does it leave me? Tara is in love with her dead ex-girlfriend. That's basically what you're saying, isn't it?" "It's more complicated than that. Tara is definitely grieving, but she asked James to pass on her contact details. She does love you, Charlie." James wasn't sure what to do, and he's struggled himself, with his marriage to Claudia. Lucy reached into the pocket of her denim jacket. Handed the slip of paper to her friend. Charlotte's hands shook, as she took the paper, not entirely first day 23 knowing whether she should. Not knowing what she planned to do next. She loved Tara Ryman, and always would, but the woman had hurt her more than she had believed possible. "Thanks, Lucy," said Charlotte, getting to her feet. "I'm going to call it a night, but I'll give you a ring soon. And, if anything happens, you'll be the first to know." 24 Paula Pudafat shunned it had happened so fast. And paradoxically, it was as though it had occurred in slow motion. Sabina was the eldest of three, with a brother, Edmund, and sister, Alicia. Their dad had gone off with some young girl, whilst their mother, Maureen, was heavily pregnant with Alicia. He had another family now, and family one were practically forgotten. Maureen had been attentive to her two younger children, leaving Sabina out in the cold, and Eddie and Alicia had been close to each other, but not to Sabina. There was 11 months between Sabina and her brother, and 10 months between Eddie and Alicia, making them, all three, close in age, but in all other respects, there was a distance between Sabina and her siblings. At 17, Sabina had got sick of her role as the family scapegoat. Moved in with then-boyfriend Jimmy, living in some bedsit, just outside Reading Town Centre. It was far removed from her mum's spacious 4-bedroom house in the posh part of Tilehurst. First day 25 Maureen packed every last belonging of her eldest daughters, randomly and untidily, into cardboard boxes, insisting that she lacked the space to store even a few of Sabina's possessions in the family home. And Sabina was never made to feel welcome there again. Years later, when both Eddie and Alicia had moved out, Sabina discovered that her brother and sister retained their bedrooms, complete with many of their belongings, and that they were encouraged to stay at their childhood home, as and when they chose to. Eddie did not give his new address or any contact details to 26 Paula Pudafat, his elder sister, and Alicia gave an email address and her mobile number, but not her address, and not the landline number. When Eddie's girlfriend had a baby girl, the information was withheld from Sabina. She never had been able to find out what they had called her niece, or anything about the child, and it hurt, because Sabina had no way of comprehending any of it. Then, one day, out of the blue, Maureen got in touch with her firstborn, via an email, worded icily and abruptly. Her father had died, and she was expected to attend the funeral. Sabina did not attend the funeral. Her health did not allow it. And her mother and siblings all blamed her, and were critical to members of the extended family, who were also instructed to shun her. When able to do so, Sabina visited her mother. Her reception was hostile. "I need answers," said Sabina, joining her mother in the kitchen that was larger than her own entire studio flat. "What am I supposed to have done?" First day 27 Predictably, a wall of stony silence was Maureen's response, as per usual. The kitchen knife caught Sabina's eye. Maureen was filling the kettle, routinely ignoring her daughter, but Sabina had had enough. The woman was supposed to have given birth to her. She was happy enough to be a mother to Eddie and Alicia. Why this shunning of her eldest child? No more. Sabina reached out, and grabbed the knife. "Slow coach, hurry up, slow coach. Get a move on. We haven't got all day. Stop dawdling. Stop dolly daydreaming. Hurry up. Get a move on. We haven't got all day. You're holding everyone else up. Everyone else is ready. Get a move on. Get a move on. You're always last. You're always behind. You ought to get yourself a bit more organized. Hurry up. We can't wait around all day for a slow coach like you. Ahead of schedule, for a change. No need to chase. No need to bully. First in line this time. First in line to die. Ahead of schedule. Leaving you behind." 28.